Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video we got another news video to discuss. We got a waiver update to discuss, a couple of injury updates, some more updates on the Arizona situation, and a lot of trade rumors involving Tampa, Toronto, Philly, Washington, Buffalo, and maybe a couple of other teams too. And we'll go through all that coming up right now. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here at the Ensign Talk channel. Before we begin this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe down below. Thank you for all of your support. I've never been able to with all of you guys, so don't forget to subscribe so we can get 250 subscribers, and leave a comment down in the comment section below discussing all that was discussed in today's video. Now, I would usually start off this video by discussing a couple of signings that have happened over the past couple of days. Unfortunately, we're caught up on all the signings that have happened over the past few days. We'll probably get more in the future, but for the time being, we have no signings to talk about. We do have one waiver placement, and that was with the San Jose Sharks. They placed defenseman Leon Gwanke, who was traded to them from the Winnipeg Jets, I think in the offseason, or maybe it was just before a trade deadline last year, sort of a prospect swap. Hadn't really worked overly well in Winnipeg. He went to San Jose, hopefully for a little bit more of a bigger opportunity. Never really got that, so the Sharks placed him on unconditional waivers for the purpose of contract termination. I think that was a mutual termination to see if Gwanke could go find somewhere else to play, and he did wind up clearing. You don't usually see players on unconditional waivers be claimed, so I'm not overly surprised that didn't happen. Gwanke also doesn't really have much NHL experience, so he's now UFA. He can go sign wherever he wants. He would probably go overseas, would be my guess, to try and get a bigger role than he had in North America, so I think that's probably where he goes. But Gwanke did wind up being placed on unconditional waivers. Like I said, not really surprised that he wound up clearing. You don't see players be placed on unconditional waivers and be claimed usually, and on top of that, he doesn't have NHL experience, so the trade never worked out for him. He never really got much more of an opportunity in San Jose than he did in Winnipeg, and he's now gone on unconditional waivers, and he's now UFA. So it's interesting to see where Gwanke goes, but he's most likely going to sign overseas. But an interesting move there, as the Sharks wind up waiving Gwanke on unconditional waivers, and he winds up going and is now UFA. So interesting stuff there, but that's the only waiver up that we have over the past couple of days. It also does free up another roster spot for the San Jose Sharks. You can have a maximum of 50, so that does allow the Sharks to have a little bit more room and flexibility to do things before deadline. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what they do, but this is an interesting move there for San Jose Sharks to come to terms on a mutual contract termination by placing on unconditional waivers. So interesting stuff there for the San Jose Sharks. Then going over to an injury update part of the video, we definitely have a couple of injury updates to discuss from the past couple of days. Mikhail Sergachev's leg injury has been upgraded to indefinite period of time. Now there's a very likely chance that he's going to go in long-term injury reserve, and he's probably not going to be back for at least the regular season, but there's a very likely chance he's not back for the playoffs either. I think that's very, very likely. This is a really bad injury. He broke, I think, his tibia and fibula bones, so not great stuff there for Sergachev. He's going to be out for quite some time. I think it's almost a guarantee that he's going to be out for the regular season. Probably also for most of the playoffs too. I think he could come back for some point in the playoffs, but he's going to be out for quite some time, so that's a really bad blow for the Tampa Bay Lightning. We also saw Acciari be upgraded to a concussion. He's going to be out for a period of time, so really bad blow there for Pittsburgh Penguins. Justin Falk in St. Louis, as well as Scott Peronovich in St. Louis, both have lower body injuries and are out week to week, so bad injury blows there for St. Louis. Antti Raanta has a lower body injury and is out week to week for the Carolina Hurricanes, so that's a bad blow for the Carolina Hurricanes. John Gibson has a lower body injury and is out for a period of time for Anaheim, so bad stuff there. Mason McTavish has the upper body injury and is out day to day for the Anaheim Ducks. Jared Chinordi has a lower body injury and is out day to day for Chicago Blackhawks, and Dan Vladar has a lower body injury, is out for an unknown period of time, and was placed on an IR. So really bad stuff there for the Flames. But then we also saw Travis Hamonic be cleared to play by the Ottawa Senators, Patrick Kane and Ben Sherratt be cleared to play by the Detroit Red Wings, Austin Watson by the Tampa Bay Lightning, Jack Hughes by the New Jersey Devils, Travis Dermott, Barrett Hayton, Matt Dumba from the Arizona Coyotes, Max Jones by Anaheim Ducks, Kasperi Kapanen by the St. Louis Blues, and Adam Boqvist by the Columbus Blue Jackets, all clear to play and have either gone back into game action or should be able to get back into game action in the not too distant future. So a lot of really great injury updates there. Good to see Boqvist get back, Hamonic, Kane, Dumba, a big one in Jack Hughes for the Devils. That's a huge boost there for New Jersey, but bad stuff to see guys like Sergachev go down with the injury and we're going to be out for a quite significant period of time. Acciari be out for the next little while, same with Raanta, Falk, Peronovich, so definitely some really bad injury updates there. And hopefully those guys are able to get back and not just in the future, not going to be out for an overly long period of time. But still, some really bad injury updates there. And then going over to a couple of pieces of news first. Just one quick piece of news. We discussed this yesterday on my dedicated video talking about the Arizona Coyotes. Now, we have had a couple more updates since then. Craig Morgan, who's a really connected Arizona Coyotes reporter, did say that that auction that they were going to be talking about at the government meeting, even though it wasn't on the online agenda, it did wind up getting talked about, and there was some positive news about that coming out of that meeting. Now, I'm not exactly sure how long it would take. He said that it could happen and could be resolved in as early as 3 months, which does seem a little bit early, but it's possible it could happen in 3 months, and they could wind up getting a new arena, so that could be a really big step forward for the Arizona Coyotes. But still, it's going to be another, at the very least, year or two, if not 3 years, before an actual arena will be in place. Now, would the NHL really want to stay at Mullet for another 2-3 years? I'm not exactly sure if that would be a huge option there for the Arizona Coyotes. So I'm still not exactly sure if that's going to be enough to keep the team in Arizona. I know even if they were to sell to another owner in Arizona, it would still have to be a while before an arena is built. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Elliot Freeman was mentioning this on a 32 Thoughts podcast yesterday. He also said that he expects there to be a league announcement sometime soon, probably over the weekend, like we said on Super Bowl Sunday. It's quite possible it could happen. We also said that he expects Alex Morello to address the staff of the Arizona Coyotes early in the weekend. So it looks like it's going to still be an interesting situation to watch out for, but at least it's positive developments there for the Arizona Coyotes, and hopefully it's a start to keeping that team in Arizona. But I'm just not sure if the NHL is really going to want to keep this team in Arizona for another 2 to 3 years while the arena is being built. Well, they have to play at Mullet Arena. I'm just not sure it's going to happen. So we're going to have to wait and see, but at least it's some positive developments there for Arizona. Not exactly sure the complete spectrum there on exactly what would have to happen to make a new arena work there, but it definitely seems like we're going to have a league announcement soon about the Arizona Coyotes, on top of having Alex Morello talk to his staff in the Arizona Coyotes organization, sort of explain to what's going on. So it's going to be interesting to see, but expect some announcements over the next little while. But at least according to Craig Morgan, they did have a talk about the land that they wanted to have auctioned off to them, and it did seem like there was some positive stuff coming out of that meeting, so that's really good stuff there for Arizona. But we'll have to wait and see if they can remain in Arizona or if they are going to be relocating to Utah in the not too distant future. So we'll have to wait and see on that. And on top of that, we're also going to look here at a couple of trade rumors. So first, we had a lot of trade rumors that happened over the past couple of days. We'll start here with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and this is what Elliot Freeman was talking about. He thinks that the Leafs could be open to moving their 2024 first round pick. Now, he says that it's not guaranteed. We know the Leafs early on, a couple of months ago, maybe even a couple of weeks ago, said that they weren't going to be extremely huge buyers this year. They weren't exactly sure if this was the year they really wanted to go for it and try and add a lot of pieces, because they didn't really view themselves as real legit Stanley Cup contenders. But that could be changing. We know we've heard a little bit over the past little while about the Flames and the Leafs hooking up on a mega deal. So it does seem like the Leafs will be open to moving their 2024 first round pick, but it does have to be for someone who's not just going to be a pure rental. Elliot Freeman did mention that they're not willing to move any of their top prospects like Cowan, like Minton, definitely not nice. They like all those prospects. They want to keep all those prospects, so they have no interest in moving those top prospects, but they said for the right package, they would possibly be open to moving their 2024 first round pick. He also mentions Edmundson as another team who could definitely move the 2024 first round pick. He does say that a lot of people that he's talked to does think that the quality of draft prospects after the 20th overall pick really go down a little bit, so that's why you've seen the Canucks and the Jets sort of trade their first round picks, and why the Oilers and the Leafs may be willing to move theirs too. So it's going to be interesting to see, but I think the Leafs would be willing to move their 2024 first round pick, but not for a rental. He does say that. He says that for someone who's a pure rental, he doesn't think that they'd be willing to move their 2024 first round pick, but if it's either a rental who they think they have a shot at signing before the free agency market, or if it's someone with term, he does think that the Leafs will be a team who winds up moving their first round pick. So it's going to be an interesting situation to watch out for the next couple of weeks, but the Leafs are not looking like they're opposed to moving their 2024 first round pick, and they could wind up moving it. So we'll have to wait and see exactly how that works. Going over to the Tampa Bay Lightning, we've seen a couple of reports recently that Sergachev's now injured. We know that's going to be a huge blow to the Tampa Bay Lightning. We saw in their first game without Sergachev, they get destroyed by the New York Islanders. That's not great news there for Tampa. You're never going to replace Sergachev. He's become one of the best defensemen in the NHL. He's like almost the first defenseman now in Tampa behind Hedman. He's already missed a significant period of time this year. Can the Tampa Lightning win without him? For sure, but I'm not exactly sure if they're a huge cup contender without him. So with that in mind, it seems like they're in the defensive market and looking to try and upgrade their defense position. Now, they didn't have a ton of really good prospects. They also don't have a ton of draft capital after moving all the pieces they did over the past couple of years. So they don't really have a lot of prospects and draft capital to work with. So I'm not sure if they'd be able to sort of make the trades work to go after those big time free agents. And on top of that, this Tampa team is a sort of a middling team. They're not on the level, in my opinion, of teams like the Rangers, the Hurricanes, Panthers, and the Bruins. So is this really the year that they have to go for? That's another thing that Elliot Freeman was mentioning on the Third Your Thoughts podcast. He does say that Tampa is looking for a couple of defensemen. I've seen a lot of people say this. David Pagnotta, I've also seen say this. Tampa could have interest in a guy like Sean Walker from Philly. They could have interest in a guy like Tanev or Hanifin from Calgary. They could have interest in a couple of other guys, but they could definitely be looking for a top four and a third pair defenseman, and they could make it work now if Sergachev is going to be out until the playoffs due to being able to place his cap hits on long-term injury reserve. But Elliot Freeman does mention that this team is not what it once was. This team doesn't have the depth that it once was, and they have to make a decision after losing a couple of bad games to New York teams. Is this team really going to be improved much if they add a couple of defensive players, and are they really going to be cup contenders? And he says that it's possible that maybe this isn't the year for Tampa. So I do think they will add. I do think they're a really good team right now, but how much do they add is really the question, because they don't have a lot of assets, and with Sergachev out, are they really going to be a cup contender? And I would probably lean towards no. You can never count out the Tampa. They're a really good team, but I'll probably lean towards they're probably not at this point as Stanley Cup contenders. So it's going to be interesting to see, but it seems that the Bolts are in the defensive market, but guys like Walker, Tanev, Hanifin are going to cost a high-end prospect or a first or second round pick, and the Tampa Lightning don't really have much of those over the next couple of years. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly how Tampa makes that work. On top of that, quick update here on Calgary Flames. Jacob Markstrom was recently talking. Not sure if it was to a reporter or if he was doing an interview, but he did say that the Calgary Flames really control his situation, and that it sounds like he would be open to waiving a trade if the Flames were to move him. So it does sound like Markstrom could be dealt before a deadline. He does sound like he wouldn't stand in the way of a trade for the Flames. A lot of people are speculating Markstrom to the New Jersey Devils. We know the Devils need something to help them. They've been a middling team so far this year. They've run through a lot of injuries, and they're still currently 5 points out of a playoff spot right now, so they're not doing overly good right now. So not great stuff there for New Jersey, so they could definitely use an upgraded net like a Markstrom. So it's going to be interesting to see, but it does sound like Markstrom would not be opposed to waiving his no movement clause if the Flames were to wind up dealing him. So it's going to be an interesting situation to watch out for, but do expect the talks around the Markstrom to possibly pick up. And if they don't happen before the trade deadline, then it's very likely this could be an offseason move, and it teams like Devils, Carolina Hurricanes, maybe even the Edmonton Oilers could all look to a guy like Markstrom to try and be their new starter. So it'll be interesting to see about that, but definitely expect Markstrom to be open to waiving his no movement clause if the Flames were to get a big enough deal for him. So we'll have to wait and see if that works for the Calgary Flames. And then we have three huge pieces of news for the Sabres, the Capitals, and the Flyers. Now we'll start with the Capitals. They've lost 6 straight. They're 2 games above 500. They're playing the 2 best teams in the NHL. There's a very likely chance that after the weekend, they are a 500 team. They're not doing overly good. We knew they were going to be a team who probably regressed a little bit after having a really good start to the season. They did not have a best start to the season, but then they had a really good stretch. They were climbing the standings. They were looking pretty good, but they could not score. They were doing this off of really good goaltending from Lindgren and Kemper. After those two started to slow down a little bit, the scoring issues definitely started to show, and they cannot find them ways to win. So the Capitals are not doing overly well right now. They need some sort of a change. In my recent video, I talked about discussing the Eastern Conference buyers, sellers, and teams who are undecided. I put the Caps as a team who's undecided right now. In my opinion, they're starting to lean more towards sellers, and I don't see that being too much of a surprise. I think they're currently 6 points out of a playoff spot. If they lose these 2 games and the Detroit Red Wings are able to beat the Canucks today, they could be as much as 8 points out by the end of the week. So that's a very bad stuff there for the Capitals. I think they're going to be a seller. Now, Elliot Freeman did mention this on a Third Your Thoughts podcast, talking about Nick Dowd as a guy who could wind up being moved. He's got 2 years left at $1.3 million. I think it's either this year plus 1 more season or this year plus 2 more seasons. He's a really good fourth line center. He thinks that there could be some teams out there who'll be willing to pay a first round pick for him. Now, in my opinion, that's a really high asking price for a fourth line center. Dowd's a really good player. Dowd's a really good center. He could definitely help on our team's fourth line for not only this year, but for the future too. A first round pick's really egregious price in my opinion. I'm not sure if that team would be willing to pay the Capitals first round pick for a fourth line center, but I do really think that there's a very likely possibility Dowd could get moved. Maybe a second round pick, that's a possibility, but I definitely do see Dowd as a possible trade candidate. We've also seen a ton of other guys who could definitely be trade candidates. Edmundson's name has come up again. I think he could be a very fantastic third pair trade chip there for the Capitals. He's only making $1.75 million for the rest of this year. Teams will definitely have a lot of interest in him as like a playoff style type defenseman, so I could see Edmundson be moved. Pacioretty, his name has come up according to David Pagnotta. He could be definitely a fantastic trade chip there for the Capitals. Decent third line goal scorer. We also have Oshie, who was mentioned earlier in the season as if the Capitals were to be sellers. He could be a guy who ends up being moved. Oshie, I think, could definitely be a guy who ends up being dealt. They also got a couple of other players. I mean, Kuznetsov's in the NHL PA Players Assistant Program right now, so he's probably not going to get moved. Mantha's another guy who could definitely get moved. There was a lot of talk about him over the past year. There was a lot of talk about him possibly being moved in the offseason. He never did. I could see him be moved by the Capitals as like a decent middle six power forward who's definitely having a really good season this year. So there's definitely a couple of guys in Washington, Mantha, Dowd, Oshie, Edmundson, Pacioretty, maybe amongst others, that I think could wind up finding themselves on their way out. Now, could Dowd get a first round pick? I would probably say no. Maybe a second round pick, but I definitely think that Dowd could definitely be a trade chip. So could Oshie, and then pending UFAs like Mantha, Pacioretty, and Edmundson. So it's going to be an interesting situation to watch out for, but expect the Capitals, if they continue to lose, especially if they lose back-to-back games against the Canucks and Bruins, to wind up being sellers at the deadline, and those five guys are definitely going to be some guys we have to watch out for. Going over to the Philadelphia Flyers. On the 32 Thoughts podcast, Elliot Friedman was talking about the Philadelphia Flyers, as was Jeff Merrick, and they were talking about some of the Flyers players who could wind up being moved. Now, he thinks that Konechny, they're already talking about an extension. They can't sign an extension until July 1st, but Konechny is a really great guy. He sort of fits the Philadelphia style of hockey. He is a really great Philadelphia Flyer. It seems like he wants to stay in Philadelphia. The Flyers want to keep him locked up long term, so it does seem like the Flyers really want to try and keep him. He's a really good top six forward. Showed this year that he can really score at a really high rate, so I definitely think the Flyers would love to keep him. So it doesn't seem like Konechny's going to get moved at this point in time, but there are a couple of other interesting situations to watch out for. Now, Merrick was talking about Sean Walker, saying how the Flyers might be really willing to try and keep him, and he thinks that one of these two guys have to go. It's either Walker or Ristolainen. Now, according to Elliot Friedman, Ristolainen's name is out there, and it is drawing a lot of attention. Ristolainen has this year plus 3 more seasons at $5.1 million cap hit. That would be a really high cap hit, and he does think that some teams may want Philadelphia to retain a little bit of salary on him, but he does think that if Philly retains a little bit of salary, the asking price will go up. I think Ristolainen could be had for like a second round pick and a decent prospect, maybe a little bit of a higher ask if the Flyers retain. He was traded by the Buffalo Sabres to Philly a couple of years ago for a first, a second, and Robert Haig. So I could see a team like, apparently a team of the Maple Leafs have been interested. The Canucks could be a team who's interested in Ristolainen. There could be other teams out there too. So Ristolainen could be a name who ends up getting moved, but it might be more of an off-season move according to Elliot Friedman. He said that with practices not a huge part of the regular season run, he thinks that there could be a lot of teams to try and add him off-season to try and improve their team of the off-season, where he can have a better chance of fitting in at training camp. So it's going to be interesting to see if Ristolainen gets moved or not. He's definitely a name out there right now, but if Ristolainen doesn't get moved, it's still quite possible Sean Walker does. Walker, according to Jeff Merrick, he thinks that Walker could be a guy who the Philadelphia Flyers try and resign, but Walker is also a really good pending UFA. Top 4 defenseman this year, could fit in a lot of teams. According to Frank Saravalli, the asking price for Walker is a first round pick. I'm not sure if they'd be able to get that, but I do think that Walker is going to be had at the deadline for a really high price tag. So Walker, Ristolainen, 2 defensemen in Philadelphia we're going to have to watch out for. A forward, Scott Lawn, is another one we have to watch out for in Philadelphia. He's been linked to a couple of teams. Toronto's been linked to him. Edmonton's been linked to him. I do think that the Sabres were linked to him by Jeff Merrick. On top of that, Elliot Friedman does think that the writing's on the wall maybe for Scott Lawn. His ice time's down. He loves playing Philadelphia, according to Elliot Friedman, but he doesn't seem like he's working out overly well with Philadelphia. He's been a fourth line forward over the past couple of games. I do think there's a very likely chance Lawn could be moved. The center depth on the trade market is not there right now, and they could definitely benefit from having another center in that market. So I think Lawn could definitely be moved. They're standing firm in the asking price of a first round pick, though. That would be a pretty high asking price for Lawn, who's more of a third line forward. But I do think with a guy like Brandon Hagel, who acquired 2 first round picks a couple of years ago, I do think there's a very likely possibility that Lawn could wind up getting a first round pick, especially with the lack of center depth right now. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens, but expect Lawn to be a possible trade candidate leading up to the trade deadline. And on top of that, we also have the Buffalo Sabres. Now, Elliot Friedman was talking about this with Jeff Merrick. They were both talking about Casey Mittlestadt. Now, first, Erik Johnson. Elliot Friedman does think that he will get moved at some point. I've seen a couple of people say that Colorado could be definitely a fit for him. Maybe a team like Tampa. I do think there's a couple of other teams out there who could definitely use a guy like Erik Johnson as like a solid third-pair veteran defenseman going into the playoffs. So I do think there's a very likely chance that Johnson gets moved. I do think the Sabres will also be willing to retain some money on that contract too. So expect Erik Johnson to be moved. But one of the guys that was being mentioned was Casey Mittlestadt. Now, Mittlestadt is having a phenomenal season this year. I think he's still the leader on the Sabres in points. He's having a fantastic season. I would be really skeptical of the Sabres to move him. But apparently, the Sabres may not want to pay him a huge bunch of money, which is what he's probably going to be asking for after a season like this. After the season he had last year, he's probably going to want a 4 to 5 year deal with an AAV of like $5 to $6 million, which is very likely a possibility. So if that's the case, the Sabres may not want to really pay that. Now, Elliot Friedman mentioned this, saying that they've paid a lot of their big players. They paid Thompson, they paid Cozens, they paid Samuelson, Power, and Dowd on the defensive end. They paid all these big time players. Skinner still signed for a while, Tuck still signed for a little bit. So they signed all of these guys way ahead of time, but Mittlestadt's still not signed. And if they don't really want to pay him, then Mittlestadt's going to start questioning why would he want to be there. So he does think that there's a very likely possibility Mittlestadt could get moved. On top of that, which is a very likely thing that I could see, which I have to agree with, is the fact that the Sabres have a ton of prospects. They have Isaac Rosen, Matt Savoy, Noah Ostland, Yuri Kulik, amongst others. Those are 4 legit top prospects, amongst others. They have a couple other guys too. And they don't really have that many guys who are going to be coming out of their lineup. I mean, they have Victor Olsson who could definitely come out, Gergensons, Opozo, but they don't have a ton of guys in their lineup that they're going to be coming out. So they're going to have to make some decisions as to players who are future in Buffalo, because not all of those young players in Buffalo in the forward group are going to be able to remain there in Buffalo. So they're going to have to make some decisions as to who's going to stay and who's going to go. And with Mittlestadt being an RFA who may want a lot of money, maybe he winds up leaving. I mean, if you move Mittlestadt, you can put Savoy there next year as your third line center, and you'd be pretty fine. I think Savoy's going to be a really fantastic top 9 forward for the Sabres. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly what happens, but I could see Mittlestadt be moved, and I've seen a lot of people say this past a while, also on the Off the Whistle podcast. I'm not exactly sure if their sources are legit or not, so I can't say this with 100% guarantee, but they were talking on the Off the Whistle podcast about Casey Mittlestadt, and they said that they have some sources that do say that Mittlestadt is being shot by the Buffalo Sabres, and that they are looking for a starting goaltender. Now, I definitely think that the Sabres could definitely use some goaltending help. On the Off the Whistle podcast, they said that they don't have overconfidence in their goaltenders that they have right now. So UPL, Levi, and Comrie. Comrie's a UFA. I don't expect him to be resigned. Levi's been up and down this year in the minors due to, I think he could definitely benefit from having maybe 1 year in the minors. Maybe the rest of this year, plus 1 more season in the minors. I think Levi could definitely benefit from that and then be called up. I think Levi's still a starter in this team, but I'm not exactly sure if he's a starter yet. So I could see Levi be there. UPL's been a really good player this year. He's been up and down. He hasn't been overly bad, but on his bad nights, he hasn't been really bad. So I do wonder if they try and go after a number 1 goaltender who can help them at least for this year and next year. Someone who has maybe a 2, maybe 3 years left on his contract. So I do think that's a very likely possibility that they could try and look for a number 1 goaltender. I look at guys like Jake Allen in Montreal, Jacob Markstrom in Calgary could be a possible fit. I've seen some people link him to. I've also seen some people say John Gibson. So there's definitely a possibility that the Sabres could look to try and add a starting goaltender before a trade deadline. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what happens, but it seems like Casey Mittlestadt's name's out there, Erik Johnson's name's out there, and the Sabres could be looking to try and add a number 1 goaltender. So we'll have to wait and see exactly how that works. But that's all I'm going to talk about in today's video. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on all this down in the comment section below. What do you think about the Sabres? Are they able to acquire a goaltender before a trade deadline? Do they move Mittlestadt either before a deadline or possibly in the offseason? Do they move Erik Johnson? Definitely have your guys' thoughts on the Buffalo Sabres. Philadelphia Flyers, Scott Laughton, does he get moved? Ristolainen, does he get moved? Walker, does he get moved? Does Konechny get signed on July 1st? Definitely have your guys' thoughts on the Flyers. Capitals, are they going to continue to lose? Are they going to continue to fall? Will they be sellers at this year's trade deadline? And if so, does Oshie get moved? Dowd, Pacioretty, Mantha, Edmundson, other players could definitely be moved. Definitely. It's going to be interesting to see about the Washington Capitals. Do the Flames get a good enough offer to ask Markstrom to move his no movement clause? And if so, was Markstrom waive his no movement clause? I think it sounds like he'd be open to doing so. So we'll have to wait and see exactly if Markstrom will be able to waive his no movement clause. Are the Bolts going to add a couple of defensemen? If so, who do you think they could add? Walker, Tanev, Hannafin, maybe a couple of other guys. Definitely. Have to get your thoughts on who you think Tampa could add. And on top of that, the Leafs. Do you think they moved their first round pick? And if so, where do you think that will be most likely to use it? Definitely. Let us know your thoughts on all that down in the comment section below. On top of that, what do you think about the injury updates, the waiver updates, and the Arizona situation? Definitely let us know your thoughts on all that down in the comment section. But that's what I want to talk about for today. Remember to like this video, and if you really liked it, remember to subscribe down below. Thank you for all of your support. I've never been able to do this with all of you guys. So don't forget to subscribe so we can get 250 subscribers. And leave a comment down in the comment section below discussing all that was discussed in today's video. I also do a blog talking about news, rumors, analysis, stuff like that. So if I check that out, I'll leave a link to that in the description below. And I can't wait to see you guys all for next video. See you guys soon.